Welcome back to Switch to Linux, and today we will have a look at the Linux Mint 22.3 beta release. Merry Christmas to all of us who love Linux Mint, and this is the version that has a lot of new features to it. The one feature they have, of course, is the new system information tool, which will give us not just the basic information we've had before, but the detailed information about our system. Very useful if you need to diagnose issues and identify what problems are. So these actually will give you a lot of useful stuff that people might ask, what's your GPU? Well, you can come over here and you can see exactly what the GPU is. You can see what drivers we're using and everything. So this really is a nice new feature inside of here that builds on the old system information and system reports tool that we used to use just in the event that you want to just basically diagnose your system or things like that. So you have that, but you also, this is the version that has the new Cinnamon menu. And there's a lot of changes in here. We're going to spend most of our video looking at that. But let's just go ahead and talk about the briefly here. As far as the installation, nothing has changed over there. And I don't remember if anything has changed inside of your update manager. So let's just have a brief look over here. Everything here looks correct. We're running the Linux kernel 6.14. You can go down to 11, or you could go down. These ones are the LTS. If you need that LTS, you got that one there. So that nothing in there has changed. So we're not going to spend really any time talking about that. I didn't test the Bluetooth. I assume everything is working on that. Let's go ahead and have a brief look at the new features list. So looking at their new features, we've already talked about the troubleshooting tips. This is just in that basic system information tool that has been there the whole time. System information that was introduced a few years back. Now they've just expanded it to have fine-tuned details on single parts. If you're looking to resolve some GPU issue, you don't need to sift through a system log of absolutely everything. So it's nice to have that nice little breakdown report that will show you everything inside of your platform. They also have the XApp symbolic icons. So these are just kind of updates allowing you to have scalable icons for different types of applications, including they put them here by default in the category menus. I actually don't like these in this spot here, but that's okay. We can turn them off. That is certainly a matter of personal preference. They do look cleaner than having the icons. I will give them that. But for people that want to adjust that, I'll show you where you can do that. That is just purely a matter of personal preference. I have no problem with how they shipped it. And they do have the improved support for keyboard layouts. This does not particularly apply to me as a single continent North American person. But if you do have multiple keyboard layouts you're looking for, they do have the keyboard applet and the ability to easily make some adjustments quickly inside of there. So that's going to be useful for those of you, particularly, the on-screen keyboard. A friend of mine was using that for a while because one of the keys on his keyboard wasn't working, and he just meant to do that. And then we will spend most of our time talking about the new menu because there are a lot of really cool things about the new menu. And one potential, I wouldn't say it's a bug, but might be a little oversight under one condition. I'll show you what that is. But overall, they've given us, not only they've given us a menu that's, honestly, it's very good. It's much more customizable, and the new defaults. There's some things I immediately don't like about it, just as a quick knee-jerk reaction. But I think they're things that they're not major issues, and we'll look at those. I think I did find one particular bug. Maybe, I don't know. Well, maybe it's just more of just the way something is worded. So we'll have a look at that. So here's no sidebar. You can take all that out. And before we get into that, let's talk about this one here as well. We have the new document templates in Nemo. So if you pull up Nemo, and you go down into your preferences, all these things in here you can always adjust at any point in time, but they add this document templates. What this is for is if you go down and right click and you create a new document, you'll see right here the default just says empty document. And this is just an empty, boring, plain document, which is effectively a placeholder. Now, what you may not know is in the past, if you right clicked Linux Mint, you used to be able to see different types of LibreOffice documents. Somewhere around the line, they got rid of those. But basically, there is inside of your home folder, there is a folder called templates, and anything in this will show up in that folder in order to create something new. So let's just, if I were to come down here and do create a new file, and you call it, let's just call it a website file.php. Okay, so now if I right click over here, you'll see that I have a website file. I can click this and create a file really quick. And you can do that for Office documents or anything else. So what they did here is they gave us the ability to create a template here. And we basically start with creating a template first, and then you would drop it in here. This is kind of the first I heard about that when I saw that, but I thought it was kind of neat because a lot of people don't know that template system works inside of Linux Mint. They may not know that it's there in I think most Linux systems. So let's just go with LibreOffice. And we'll just kind of start with a basic document. No, I don't need tips. Okay, so here's just a basic document. Maybe we'll switch this to body text because that default text is sometimes annoying. And then let's just go ahead and save as. And we're going to drop this into the templates folder, and we're going to call this a writer document. So did I drop that in the right spot? It doesn't look like it's in the right spot. Nope. I keep on putting it in the wrong spot. There you go. In templates. Okay. This is just a stupid user problem. This is not the system. This is just me. Writer document. Hit save. Okay, good. Now, when I go in and I right click, I can see a writer document. It will create me a writer document. And now when I open this up, it's just LibreOffice. Now, this is a feature Windows had for a long time. Many Linux distributions do ship with that, although it's something that we may not think about, and I don't remember if I've ever talked about it. But anyway, Nemo did give us this new template editor system that's not particularly clear how to use it, but that's kind of what it is. You basically create a new document, and then you would attach whatever type of document that should be opening with. In the example case here, an open document spreadsheet. So they give you a LibreOffice Calculate document. They've given you a Python 3 script there. So anything you throw in that folder will show up in that right click menu. So that might be something some of you may not have known existed inside of Linux. It's been there for a while, but they've just kind of added something in Nemo to manage it a little bit easier. You can do your pausing of your file processes, and they've also added notification badges to applications inside of your taskbar down here. So if you're using, in this case, Discord, and you'll have a message down there, now you'll actually see that inside of your application notification. So those are some of the options. Oh, they also did add inside the settings, there is a Thunderbolt system. Let me go into our settings. System settings, and they've actually added a Thunderbolt section here as well, and this computer doesn't have any. But so there is some of the basics, and you can have a look at that. Now I want to spend a lot of time looking at the new menu. So let's go ahead and start with, let's go ahead and give ourselves, let me go into users real quick, users and groups, and we need to authenticate my user here, and let's go ahead and change my picture. Coffee sounds good unless there's something better. Here you go. No, not grapes. Oh, here you go. I'll do a little kitty. There you go. So I'm now the kitty, and now my kitty will show up in my menu up here. So that is kind of a neat little feature you can see up there. We can still, as before, you can adjust your menu bigger or smaller if you want. If you want it to pop up a little bit bigger, always, you can do that. You want it to be small, you can do that. So that hasn't changed at all. And you can still go in here, and let's say I use LibreWriter a lot. I can still add this to my favorites, and it will show up down here. I didn't test if I can. Okay, I can drag and drop these around. So I can move my documents around a little bit. And you can see that everything in the menu is pretty good. We have our power buttons over here. Here's our power. Here's our lock. I think this is going to be log out. We have a search bar down at the bottom. Now you can come in here and you can still edit the menu as we've done before. And to my knowledge, nothing in here has changed. So, I can change the icon of the accessories category or whatnot, but you'll notice that the accessories category is this XApp icon there instead. And that's one of the things I wasn't a huge fan of. But if you go down to configure, now we have a lot more options inside of this. And if you use symbolic icons for categories and toggle this guy off, then you'll see that you'll have your main icons back. So depending on what your preference is, let me bump that back up. Let's go 24 on that. So there you go. This is actually kind of the way I like it. I like these icons better than I like the symbolic icons, but that really is a matter of personal preference for you. But you can do that. Here's your icon descriptions. I think that is all the same. The panel shows custom icons or not. So this is where, if you want, you can change this. So, let's go with that one. There you go. So now it's kind of green. If I close my settings there, you'll see what that looks like. But all right, so let's go back into some of the main features of this. So the first is, of course, is you can add different quick folders in here. This is actually a very useful tool that I use on other distributions or other desktop environments that has always been missing. That's why I actually always keep a Nemo instance down here, so I can click there and then go to where I need to go to. But with this, I actually can do that pretty quick. So here's home, here's documents. I don't usually use the downloads. I'm not a huge fan of using the music or the pictures as much. So you can do that, and now we have just exactly the ones up there that we want. If you don't like the avatar up there, you can take it off. So that's right there. And you can take off the sidebar. Now, here is one of the challenges. If you take off the sidebar, note that the power icons completely disappear. The only way I know of right now to power down your system in this is to do it with the terminal, because you don't have the power options on your menu anymore. So you just have to boot up a terminal and do a sudo shutdown -h now, and then that'll shut your system down. So that might be a little bit of an oversight. If the power button is in the sidebar and the sidebar is turned off, you will not be able to access those. But you can switch over to appearance and move the power systems into the search bar, next to the search bar there. And now when you take the search bar off, the sidebar off, then you'll see that that will show up there. And so there are still options for that. We can put the search bar at the top as well. And so now we'll have our search and our power buttons up there. And so you can really customize this a lot of the different ways you want. Now, I personally like the sidebar, so I'm going to keep that on for my case. And the next one, of course, is favorites. This is the one that I think it sort of works, but maybe not. I think some people may be confused about the fact that the favorites, you'll notice that the favorites in the sidebar are still there. What this is one little icon that's over here. And this apparently ties to favorite documents. And I have no idea how to make a document a favorite. Okay. Maybe if I need to go into recents, can I right click? I can't even really right click a document there, at least not while it's there. I have no idea how to make document to favorites. I'm sure that might be in there somewhere, but turning this favorites off does not take favorites off of your menu, but it does take the favorites icon out of your bar here. Likewise, we can also remove the recents as well. So if you don't have a need for the recents or a need for the favorites, you can turn those off. Again, I just don't know what exactly constitutes a favorite document or how to make a document a favorite. That is certainly something I am not totally clear on personally. But there we can turn on or off our various places inside of here. We can turn off or turn on our sidebar. We did talk here about changing your icons back to the main icons instead of the symbolic icons. That was one of my concerns, is some of the early previews didn't have any icons here at all, or just had like the 9 dots like all applications all throughout. I didn't like that. I'm very pleased to see that this is still a good function of it. So that is what we're saying. I don't know of anything that has changed over here, but that is a brief look at the new Cinnamon menu. And overall, I really think this is a major improvement. There is that little issue about those power buttons in the sidebar if you take the sidebar off. But you can deal with that by putting the power buttons over with the search bar. And I do like the fact that we still have full control. I can still kind of return it back. Oh, one more thing I did didn't actually think of. And I was doing my my work, is I kind of remember seeing something that if you wanted that old cinnamon menu bar, it might still be in here. So this is the new one. Let me see if there is actually another menu, because there are other menus. So let me search for that real quick. I'll pause the video and then I'll come back. Okay, so I did not see any reference to the old menu. Of course, there is still, we talked about this form of menu in the past, what will basically show us kind of like one of the menus on, oh, I forget which desktop now, but there's that as an alternative menu. And there's also one that kind of reminds you a lot more like the GNOME menu. So those are some options that you might have there as well. But I did not actually see any instance to any of the old menus. So if you did really, really absolutely want that old menu, it does not look like at this time there is a way to have that back. As far as for me looking at this compared to the old one, I don't know. I do kind of like this one a little bit better personally, but I'll kind of leave that to everybody to decide what you guys all think in the comments down there. Really, the only major changes is we have our option for our icon at the top. We can add specific places to our home directory now, and we have name labels on our favorites. That, I think, is the one thing I don't like the most. Is I wish I could just get those out of there, because I know what they all are, but then you don't remember what the top are. So I completely understand why they did this menu the way that they did it. And so overall, I really like it. I think this is a great improvement over the old way. It is moving towards a little bit more modern desktop, in the sense that we can access those individual places. You can still have full control over your menu, and it really just is Linux Mint doing Linux Mint things, constantly making the operating system a little bit better. So let me know your thoughts about all these in the comments down below.